This is the neck stop. I just penciled in center lines on either end just to make it a little easier to see. I traced this pattern with a washer, so my outside cut line is proud of that all the way around. So I'm just trying to even that up so that I get my template centered. And they were good enough to put the center of the sound hole on the plan, so I went ahead and marked it and drilled it, and that makes this little bit easier. So now I've located the center of my sound hole. I can see my center line here, so right there is the center, and I got the wrong tool. The good awl is over there still. We'll go ahead and use this one. I don't need much of a dent. Actually, that's all I'm getting. The end of this awl is so blunt. So I got my real good one. Stanley 69-122 USA. All right. And so I'm ready to drill this hole. This is the center hole at the pin that the router jig goes onto. I'll get it down here where it can be seen. Right in that little deal there. And we're going to talk about that little router thing here, the jig part of it. This thing has a bubble that you can look like a bubble balancer for the tires, you know, so it has one this way and this way. So it makes it pretty handy because this is too deep to get into my drill press. So I'm drilling it by hand, but I can just stand it up, look at my bubble, which you can't see now, and then drill a pretty straight hole. That just happens to be a 4mm, in case anybody was wondering. That's the pin they supplied with the router jig. And I say router jig, I mean a Dremel jig, or a what's the other thing that fits this thing? The Fordham tool, or there's one more. There's another brand of Dremel. I think it's English. I can't think of it now. English? British? What is the proper term? Tell me. Do you people across the pond? Thinking of you, Steve. Do you guys prefer to be called British or English? Or does it matter? Is it like quid and pound? Is it all the same? All right, now this is not the sleeper board that I was using under the other one. I'll have to, you won't know the difference because I'm just filming this while I'm waiting for the other thing I just filmed, waiting for that to dry a little bit before I pull it off of that board. So I do have to change the bit out of this to my 16th inch bit. You can't see it. I have this thing up in the air. It would be hard to explain. I have a bungee cord hanging out of the ceiling that I've had the cord hung over and then clamped into position so that as I'm routing this thing and it's spinning, the cord isn't in my way. Okay, so I'm being very careful not to bang this thing around on the top. So I have explained this. There was slop here, and I was able to take that out by putting a C-clip in. And then these little screws loosened up while I was routing the other top, and I tightened those up with some Loctite. And then I checked the other screws to make sure everything was snug. There is a little bit of play side to side right here. You probably can't tell, or maybe you can. You could hear it. And it will go like that, but that doesn't hurt anything. But apparently this little bit of side to side play doesn't hurt anything either, because I was able to operate quite well with it that way. So, but once the pin is in here, it just simply goes over the pin. You have to kind of draw you some lines, you know, on the top itself to set up against. And now I have the other top as a reference because I did just write it all out on the plan. So it looks like my battery on my iPad that I'm using for a monitor is dying. So I'm going to go ahead and charge that up now. And I'll bring you back. All right, so this is the one we just did. It's been drying for an hour. And so I pulled it off of the backer board. And I just took measurements off of it. So for the next one. Yeah, so I'm going to set this aside. Lining that up with the pinhole. There we go. We have a 3 7/8 inch hole, which means half of that would be 1 15/16. And so I measured from half of the hole out to 1 15/16. I don't know if you can see these measurements or not. Then I measured from there 3/16 to the beginning of the first 80 millimeter channel, and I just used my deal here, digital calipers if we must name them. Okay, and then I checked the other rosette that I just did, and it was 100. The gap between was 100 and 100, and so I've got 80 here. I've got 80 here, and I've got 300 in the middle for the wider strips. We've got 80, 100, 300, 100, and 80. So I put the smaller cutter, the 1/16 cutter, back in the gizmo. We'll move that. And I had to figure out a way to remind myself which was which here. So if I want to make this longer, in other words, if I want to go farther away from the center, then I have to rotate this knob to the left. Now what I didn't do was I never did figure out how many rotations equaled how many thousandths. So just kind of got close and then just eased it over until things fit. I suspect that's probably the way to do it. So I'm going to turn it right now because I want to get to this the smaller interior ring. And I'm going to start at the top of the ring. It seems to cut fine that way. I've been rotating the tool. Need to come in even more. Tell you, when I'm all the way out to the outside edge of this thing, the screw on this is inside the barrel here. Okay, so I managed to get too far now. Now you can also leave it in place and rotate it. It's just harder to rotate when it's right down against the top. Now, I can be in the middle of this as well. I don't need to be, and I think I'm going to be. That way I can sneak up on it from either direction. All right, I'm in the middle. Now, I don't know what I'm set at depth-wise because I just put the bit in. So I want to be about 30 for the first pass. I'm just a fuzz over 30. Well, I'm more like 40. I think we'll be okay with that. And I've been running this thing. It's not plugged in. I think I've been running this thing at about half speed. And for whatever reason, maybe because I'm right-handed, I tried to turn this thing around so that this was more directly under the camera, but I couldn't get my brain to go backwards, so I decided to leave it this way, and I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise. I don't know. It feels like it's cutting right. It doesn't feel like it's grabbing and pulling me, which would be a climb cut, and I didn't try to go this way. But I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing because it just felt normal or natural. So I go about halfway, and power-wise, I think, and then we'll just drop it in and we'll go from there. Okay, the really nice thing about this is you can pull it off the pin as many times as you want. It goes right back to the exact right place, which is good. And I'm not going to belabor this, so I don't know how deep I am right now. I want to go to the full depth in this first groove, and then I'll work my way in or out to get the thickness correct. I got to center this, or I got to zero it. These StewMac calipers have the notch here for measuring fret tangs, or just the crown when the tang just pops in there. But there's a notch here, so for some reason, so you can measure fret crowns while they're on the board. But for whatever reason, they don't just live at 0. You have to zero them out, which opens them up, you know, about that much. So now we'll see if we can get into the groove with this. Yeah, it's thin enough to go in the groove. And so my first pass was actually at 40. So I'm just going to drop it to 60. And this particular tool, and like I said before in another section of the video, I'm very careful not to be banging the top. This particular tool, though, let me get it down here where you can see it. The StewMac Dremel base, it's great for inlay, that sort of thing, because it's got a big deep cut here where you can see the bit pretty easily. I put a little flag on them just because it blows the dust out of the way. So all the bits I've used already have flags on them. Okay, but adjusting this thing has always been kind of a pain, trying to figure out where I'm at. But I've discovered just this time that if you loosen these, okay, and well, I'm going to roll that one down out of the way. The spring-loaded side is the side that helps you out. Now, when you tighten that up, it actually drops the bit farther out. So, and I'm using, like I said, I was using this. It didn't seem like it was reading all that accurately for me, but it seemed like it just did actually work really good. So 60 thou. So I'm going to back that up a little bit. I'm reading just a fuzz under 60 thou, or over rather. And I'm going to go with that. Well, I'm going to read 60 and then measure it again. And if it doesn't work, I'll add something to it. Yeah, I'm just a hair over 60. So then you roll up the spring side here until you touch. Now this side is clear, so it's just the spring and that being tight is holding everything where it needs to be. So now I'm just going to roll that down until it just contacts it. Roll the bottom one up and then snug that up. Now I should be good. I had trouble before when I was doing inlays trying to keep the thing square to itself, and I must have been doing something wrong because it hasn't been an issue now. So if you can imagine me doing something wrong. All right, we're going to go ahead and take this one more lap and down to the 60 thousandths. All right, and we'll measure that now. Oops, and grabbed on the way out. And that's actually reading 65 thousandths. So we're a little heavy. I'm going to grab my my other rosette set and check the depth on that one. They're not necessarily going to be the same. They probably will be, but just to make sure. So now I've got to close it back up, zero it, and then take a reading. I guess I didn't zero it. Oh, I think I just turned it off. All right. So this is right at 60. So I'm going to go ahead and back that off a little bit so that the rest of my channel isn't oversized. Okay, so although I don't think that they necessarily press in all the way, so that's also 60. And that's also 60. So every piece is 60 thousandths thick. I'm sure that 5 thousandths probably wouldn't matter. I just don't want to have to take any of the top off if it was to go below. But like I said, I just don't think that's going to happen. So I'm doing the same thing I did before. You can't really see what I'm doing, but okay, so now I'm reading right at 60. I think I'm going to go ahead and go down to my other line, go back that way to my other line, and take that out. And I'm full depth, but I'm just barely scraping this thing. We're looking at, if this is a 16th, so it's half of 125, so it's about 62.5 thousandths. And then I'm only taking out 18 thousandths this direction to get, oh, we didn't check that. They should be 80 thousandths like the other ones were. That's reading 79 and I'm not really pushing it. So yeah, I'll just take it out to this other, yep, 79. And so I want to shorten it, right? So I'm going to go right. I'm going to go to the right. So I barely turned that knob at all, and I doubt that I really did much. But let's just get a feel for this. Yeah, it's not there. So you probably can't see it. But I still have a bit of pencil line right on this edge of it and right on this edge of it. So I think I'm going to go down again to this other pencil line and see. So I'm going to go right because I want to shorten the distance between the pin and the router. I think I might have just gone a little, well, when you can see it actually happen, it feels like you've gone too far. But I haven't, so we're good. All right, I'm going to unwind my router. All right, all you peoples. This is the second rosette. I clamped this one in because it was more uniform across the top of the rosette, so I felt like I could do that and get good clamping pressure across it. Just wind that out of the way so I don't whack that. Okay. So we had packing tape on there, if you'll recall, and that doesn't stick, so it just came right off of there. Now we've got nice tight rosette, and the first one I did, I think I actually got just a fuzz better joint right here, and this is still a really tight joint, but it's slightly misaligned, and that just means that from one end of the thing to the other, that these veneers probably weren't exactly the same thickness or something, because they're just slightly off. But it is so minuscule that you're not going to hone in on that little spot when you're looking at the whole guitar. So taking that off the board, probably, I'm not going to do it this second, but I'll pull this out so I can just put this back in my pile without having to worry about damaging the pin. I'm going to run these through the sander, and I'll explain something about that when I get over there.